Patrick Mahomes in his first 6 seasons has won 3 Super Bowls, including 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He's been to 6 straight AFC championships, another Super Bowl, another choke job out of Kyle Shanahan. This was one of those games where it looked like the 49ers did everything they could to win, and yet it wasn't good enough. They pulled out the kitchen sink, and no matter what they did, Mahomes was just inevitable. Now, this game, in my opinion, wasn't lost for the 49ers because of Kyle Shanahan's decision to get the ball to start overtime. Because at the end of the day, it didn't matter who got the ball first or who got it last. Both teams got an opportunity to possess the ball in overtime. So even if the 49ers would have scored a touchdown first, Kansas City still was going to get another possession. And even if Kansas City would have got the ball first and scored, you were still going to have to get a touchdown. And you still would have been in a situation where you possibly would have had to gone for it on 4th down like you should have done instead of taking the field goal. And I get the people who say you got to take the points in the situation, but you're not going up against any other team. You're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're going up against number 15, Patrick Mahomes. You can't leave the game up to your defense getting a stop when your offense has a prime opportunity to put 7 on the board and make it even harder for Kansas City to win the game. And they were going to go for 2. So you potentially could have won the game even if you would have given up a touchdown. It just made no sense playing it safe there when you know how good Mahomes has been playing the last couple of drives. And no matter how much confidence you have in your defense, when you have Patrick Mahomes on the other sideline, you don't give him an opportunity to win the game. You got to go win the game yourself. And that's why the 49ers lost. Kyle Shanahan played it way too safe in this game, at least to me. And yeah, there were times when they were being aggressive. They were sending pressure, sending extra guys, blitzing Patrick Mahomes. But when they were sending pressure at Mahomes in the fourth quarter, it wasn't working because he was ready for it. He was prepared. And those were situations where they really should have just played it safe instead of trying to blitz Mahomes, because when you blitz Mahomes, you get effed up, especially in the fourth quarter. I don't know what Steve Wilks was thinking trying to blitz Mahomes. And then what was really the deciding factor when I knew Kansas City was going to win the game was when they converted on fourth and 1. If the 49ers couldn't get it done on 4th and 1, you knew KC was going to drive down the field and continue their Super Bowl dominance on the NFL or their dominance on the league, because you knew that the 49ers defense was eventually going to get winded. And once you get into the red zone and you start seeing players with their hands on their hips, you know what time it is. And those players, once they saw Patrick Mahomes get that big run to put KC in the red zone, and eventually he hit Mecole Hardman for the game-winning touchdown, it was all but inevitable because they couldn't get off the field in 4th and 1. If they would have got off the field in 4th and 1, that would have been ball game. But instead, Mahomes picks up 8 yards, gets another big run, and that's all she wrote. You see, the 49ers, they had every opportunity to win this game. They couldn't capitalize off any turnovers from Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes had an interception the first drive of the second half. What did San Francisco do with it? Nothing. They couldn't even turn it into a field goal. When they got the Isaiah Pacheco fumble early in the ball game, they did nothing with it. They had to punt. When you're going up against Mahomes, you got to make them pay for mistakes. You got to make Kansas City pay for mistakes. You just can't get turnovers and do nothing with them. And that's why the 49ers lost. You see, like, they weren't aggressive. They couldn't find ways to get Kansas City off the field in crucial downs. And on the opposite side, your offense couldn't find a way to keep drives alive in crucial downs. You were terrible in third down situations. Absolutely terrible. A big reason for that was because Steve Spagnuolo, his blitzes were getting home. And Kyle Shanahan, something that I've noticed about this offense all season long is that anytime they go up against blitz-heavy teams like the Minnesota Vikings, the Cleveland Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens, this offense has struggled because Kyle Shanahan's offense just seems to not be able to have any counterpunches for defenses that are heavily aggressive. Like when the 49ers, send pressure on Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, what did he have? He had check routes, or he had check downs. He had hot routes. He had somebody who was going to be open just in case the 49ers were sending extra guys. The 49ers offensively didn't have that. When Kansas City was sending everybody, Brock Purdy was left out there to dry. Nobody was open. No check down, no nothing. Then Kyle Shanahan in the second half, he gets away from running the football during a stretch in the third quarter. When you have a guy like Chris McCaffrey, who you're paying all this money, who you traded for and is regarded as one of the best running backs of this generation, why would you not give him the ball in the biggest game of the year coming after halftime to try to set a tone and try to keep Mahomes off the field? It makes no sense for you to become pass heavy and turn into something that you're not. Why are you getting away from what got you here? What got you to the Super Bowl has you being able to run the football effectively with CMC, utilizing play action and making big plays happen through that. But you get into the third quarter and all of a sudden you say, F the run game, we're going to go Mike Leach, Lincoln Riley with it. And it backfired in your face. There was one point when the 49ers went 3 and out like on 3 or 4 straight drives. Kyle Shanahan, for some reason, I don't know what it's been lately, but you look at the Packers game, even the NFC Championship against the Detroit Lions, his play calling is not consistent in big games. Maybe it's because he overthinks it a little bit too much. Maybe he just gets a little bit tired and he second guesses himself. But the play calling in the second half was absolutely abysmal out of Kyle Shanahan. Yes, they did score, but you should have been trying to play ball control. You should have been trying to play keep away from Mahomes, putting the ball more on the ground with CMC. Even though Kansas City's run defense was pretty good, they held CMC to under yards. He should have had 30 carries in this game. He should have been running the offense. Deebo Samuel was nowhere to be found. Brandon Ayuk wasn't really doing too much. Like, he made a couple of plays here and there, but not all that often. And then George Kittle got absolutely shut down. So at that point, the only consistent star player that you have was CMC. So why not give him more carries on the ground? You got him involved in the passing game, but you should have been giving the ball to CMC damn near every single play. Didn't really understand the play calling in the third quarter out of Kyle Shanahan, and just the whole entire second half. The play calling was way better in the first half when he was playing complimentary football instead of when he became one-dimensional in the second half. I don't know. Maybe the pressure just gets to be too much for him. And you know what they say about pressure? It either bursts pipes or makes diamonds. And every time that pressure is on Kyle Shanahan, the pipes get burst every single time. And then the defense, for as well as they played in this game, all of the talent that you have on the defensive line, and yet you can't find a way to get Mahomes off the field. The last drive, overtime, all you need is 4 stops and that's game. You got Nick Bosa, one of the best pass rushers in the league. Arik Armstead, Chase Young, a former top 3, top 5 pick in this league. And nobody could stop Mahomes the final possession. It's like this dude was doing everything. He was looking like Michael Jordan on the football field. Running around, looking like Lamar, fooling everybody with the read option. Like, what the hell happened to the pass rush? The pass rush was getting after Mahomes all game long. But then we get into the fourth quarter, and Nick Bosa and Chase Young are nowhere to be found. Like, what the hell happened? And then the special points miscues. Oh, my goodness. You talk about a game that was won on all 3 phases by Kansas City, offense, defense, and special teams. Think about how differently this game would have been if the 49ers didn't get that PAT blocked. If that wasn't blocked, that's a 4-point lead that they have. Kansas City has to score a touchdown. And then You have the muff punt, which led to Kansas City getting their first touchdown of the game, and they got the lead 13-10. Special teams really hurt San Francisco in this game, and not enough people are talking about it. The special teams was a disaster, and that was a huge reason why Kansas City ultimately was able to come back and win it. Kyle Shanahan, he's a really good coach. He still is a top 3, top 5 coach because, yeah, he has 2 Super Bowl losses, but he's been to several NFC championships. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Based on resume, he still is one of the more accomplished coaches in the league right now. Is he overrated? A tad bit. Because you would think a head coach who has so many of his assistants in the league as head coaches and offensive coordinators, that he would be able to find a way to engineer a touchdown in overtime instead of having to settle for 3. You know who you're going up against on that other sideline. You knew damn well your defense had no chance in hell of being able to stop Mahomes. You were hoping that your defense could get a stop. You weren't confident that your defense was going to get a stop. You were crossing your fingers, praying to the football gods that they were going to be able to get it done. And it just wasn't a good game plan. It wasn't a good decision. Chase Young played pretty good, and the whole entire defensive line played really well. But when it mattered the most, they were nowhere to be found. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. Really good coach. But when the game's in the balance, he's nowhere to be found. It's just like he goes from a good coach to a terrible coach in these big-time games when the lights are the brightest in the biggest moments. And his offense had no counterpunch to it. Kansas City, their blitzes were getting home, and every time they sent pressure and it got to Brock Purdy, they put themselves in 3rd and long situations. Ultimately, for Kyle Shanahan to win the Super Bowl, he has to get better at finding ways to win these games in the 4th quarter. Unless the 49ers blew out Kansas City, there was no way I felt they were going to have a shot at winning this thing. If this was going to be a close game, Patrick Mahomes and company were going to win it because they've been battling adversity all season long. The 49ers, a problem that they have under Kyle Shanahan is that throughout the regular season, they don't face as much adversity as Kansas City. Well, at least this season. In the past, they faced a little bit of adversity. Yeah, they had a 3-game losing streak at one point, but you knew they were going to turn things around. And then they went on a 6-game losing streak, a 6-game winning streak right after. They clobbered Jacksonville on the road, and then they got smashed by Baltimore on Christmas Day. You see, Kyle Shanahan, he got to do a better job at learning how to have better decision-making, better judgment, better play calling in the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter. The 4th quarter is what lost this game for San Francisco. This game was never going to come down to who got out to a big lead first. It was going to come down to who was going to be able to get it done when it was all said and done the last 15 minutes. And unfortunately, the 49ers weren't able to do that. You go into overtime, and you were pretty confident KC was going to win it after San Francisco had to settle for 3. At that point, it was all she wrote. I like Kyle Shanahan. He's one of the best head coaches of this decade. But the fact that he keeps coming up short is because he doesn't know how to win close games. There's a reason why, he only has had 2 career comebacks, and they've all occurred in the playoffs. This team wasn't playing their best football, and this wasn't the best stretch of coaching that we've seen now, Kyle Shanahan. As a matter of fact, I say it's been the worst. And he had a way marginally better quarterback than what he ever had in the Super Bowl when he had Jimmy Garoppolo. Brock Purdy was good enough to win this game. He just wasn't good enough to outplay Mahomes when it mattered. And the reason for that was because of Kyle Shanahan's play calling. Until Kyle Shanahan becomes a better 4th quarter coach, the 49ers are going to continue to have these heartbreaks. Rather, if it's losing in the NFC Championship or coming up short by here in the Super Bowl, until Kyle Shanahan gets better the last 15 minutes of these ball games, this is going to continue to be the end result.